Fremont County, Nick, you were talking about earlier this morning that kind of struck you as one of those counties that got hit hard, and maybe we weren't looking in that direction at the time, but it was the retirement home that did it?
Yes, sir. The Showboat Retirement Center there in Lander.
To help us to find out a little bit more about what's going on there is Mike Jones, Fremont County Commissioner. Mr. Jones, thanks for coming on this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So what is the latest out of the retirement center? I mean, has it spiked more, or has it settled off? What are we seeing inside?
They're still under quarantine, are they not?
Yeah.
They still are under quarantine. We expect, we've been in conference with the state. We expect that quarantine to last maybe through the end of the week. We are getting to the point where we're evaluating some of the patients that have gone to get tested have want to come back, and they were tested negative. So we're still at 12. I think we might be at 12 now for patients and staff affected, but it has leveled off at the facility.
Now, with the retirement centers, this is or a nursing home, similar facility. That's what we saw in Washington State early on when this virus made it to the U.S. Tragic deal up there. Obviously, not great with the retirement center in Lander having it happen, but certainly a better outcome thus far. Is there a thought? Has there been any tracing done to determine how the virus made it into that facility?
There's been plenty of tracing done, but we've never found the source. We have found some downstream connections where some of the cases that have followed were people who visited and were affected, and now we're seeing some of those cases. So that kind of sits around a particular family in the community that spread has continued.
Well,
Sure.
Let me ask you about the quarantine then, because if you've quarantined the facility, but there's still employees there, I guess they go home at the end of the day, or are they staying there?
I don't know the answer to that. I thought I heard early on that they were staying, but I don't know that for sure. I would be reasonably. I think that's a good question, and I think it may be right on that's where they're at. They're where they're sitting at night.
And Mr. Jones, reading your news release from Saturday, you say in here the disease is active in the community, and you note that there is one case in Riverton unrelated to the other cases, and the origin there is unknown. Is that kind of where you get the community spread conclusion from?
No, it's the other cases that we referenced out in Ethity that are related downstream from the Showboat.
Gotcha.
That's where it came from.
Okay. Yeah. And you say in here too that all this is manual reporting and difficult to put all those numbers and tallies together while you're also trying to actually fight the virus. But 400 people in Fremont County directed by their physicians to self-isolate. Is that correct?
Right. We're getting daily updates from the clinics and providers. We didn't have enough visibility, and with the lack of testing, we just couldn't tell what was happening. So we started that. Our health department started that on their own, and it's been tremendous to give us much more visibility as to where this thing is trending. We're seeing our clinics in Fort Washakie and Arapahoe, or in Ethity there. They are seeing a growth in number of people who are reporting, and so that's giving us eyes on to see how this thing spreads. And as you know, Fremont County is extremely spread out, so there's really multiple communities here, and so now we have cases in every community, and so we're just continuing to watch that. Our biggest concern is, do our hospitals get overrun? So far, we're in good shape. We have 6 people on ventilators, and we have adequate supply of ventilators and staff. The challenge will be if that increases rapidly, how quickly can we respond? And we are working on those contingencies every single day. It's a constant conversation throughout the day.
Certainly. And of the 23 cases present in Fremont County as of last night, according to the state, do you happen to know how many of those folks have recovered, if any?
We know of 2 for sure that have fully recovered. We're seeing some others beginning to come off, but I don't have an accurate number of that.
Sure. And of the 400 that have been directed by their physicians to self-isolate, is the plan to test all of those people?
We don't have adequate testing for that. What we wanted to see is what's happening in the community, so that we could potentially anticipate. So as we get our daily calls from providers and the updates, if this thing jumps, and it did on Thursday and Friday, that's where we started to put out numbers like we're seeing over 400, and that's a little bit of a squishy number, but it's not 200. It's jumped.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're watching the trend and the location, so we can work on our contingency planning. The PPE is going to be the biggest challenge, of course.
And talk about that a little bit. A challenge getting it into the county, getting it distributed within the county?
Yeah, the difficulty for us is the supply chain from the private side and coordinating that with the public side. So we have these state and national stores, and those can come to us, but then the clinics have their own supplies, and sometimes different supplies than we know about. So getting a handle on that is the tough part. The Geiger counter, if you will, is the ICU at the hospital, because in ICU, so we have a number of patients in there, the consumption of that PPE is really significant. It's much higher than any other place. Right now, we think we have about a 30-day supply at the hospital, but we don't know what's going on in the various clinics that are getting the people that present.
And really quickly, before we break, Mr. Jones, so if anybody has access to any of that PPE, you guys, Fremont County, with the highest number of cases in the state, you sure could use it.
You bet.
All right.
That's absolutely true.
Fremont County Commissioner Mike Jones, thank you, sir, for coming on this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you, sir.
All right, 8:43 is the time. You're listening to a special edition of Wake Up Wyoming, Wyoming Coronavirus Town Hall Live.